Hello, everyone. Welcome again to, I'm going to get the name wrong. This is the first time I've hosted and I can't remember what I'm doing. Their Excellencies Between Two Roses will do. Thank you, Politarchopolis, for joining us this evening. Anne and Giles, we'd love to have you with us and we'll ask a very few questions and you can ask us some. I'm not doing this very well, am I, Lilia?
You're doing fantastically well. None of us are judging. We've all been put on the spot.
I'm nervous, obviously. So I'm Duchess Altani, and my co-host is Her Excellency, Her Grace, Mistress Lilia. Firstly, and joining us tonight is Baroness Anne and Baron Giles. I'm using my hands. Oh, God. Good nobles, we come here together in a spirit of friendship, deepening of our skills, sharing of our knowledge, and a shared interest in the search to find truth through experimental archaeology and historical inquiry. It is in this context that I, Altani Caligu, on behalf of my kingdom of Lochac, acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands upon which we gather. We recognize their continuing connection to the land and culture, and we pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and the elders from other communities who may be here today. Thank you. Your Excellencies, which lands do you sit on?
So most of our lands are the lands of the Ngunnawal people, and we also have some lands around the Wiradjuri people.
And to our northeast, the Gundawara people.
Lovely, thank you. Well, I'm sure you have seen a few of these interviews in the past. And again, I say welcome.
We're big fans.
We'd love to have you on and thank you for joining us. Now,
it's our pleasure.
If you're not comfortable with anything we ask, please just let us know and we'll pass that by. Do not feel pressed to answer them. But firstly, what barony are you reigning over?
So we reign over the Barony of Politarchopolis. It is, in mundane legal terms, it's the city of Canberra and surrounding areas in the state of New South Wales, including the towns of Yass, Goulburn, and up to the Southern Highlands. Politarchopolis is a very thriving barony in the Kingdom of Lochac. We're very lucky because it's the Canberra region is a very public service region. So many people who join the SCA who happen to have public service jobs gravitate towards our barony. That's not to say that public servants are the only people in the barony. There are people from a rich and diverse range of lifestyles, but we are very much enriched by very capable people who come from all over the country into this area to work, and they bring their medieval life with them. So Politarchopolis's gain is everyone else's loss, but that's a shame.
And you would have heard in your background two of the Barony hounds, so they may at times sort of share their love and express their joy in your presence this evening, Your Graces. So it's lovely to have you.
They're very welcome.
So I am going to ask you about your device, if you wouldn't mind. Do you know where the origins of it comes from?
You'll be shocked, but it's a bit of a heraldic pun.
No.
Yes. Now, His Excellency being far more experienced. I know, Herald.
Really? Who would have thought?
So this is, as you can see behind me, actually, if I move slightly, you will see a strip of red tape, which is beloved of
public servants.
And in fact, you see a burly griffin, which in fact Canberra was designed by an architect called Burly Griffin. So it is a burly griffin on a strip of red tape, because heralds like to amuse themselves.
Politarchopolis is the best translation we've got into Greek of the place that is ruled by the people who make government.
Yep.
So the whole thing about Politarchopolis and its device is that it really reflects where we are and the mainstay of employment and engagement in this local area, which is governing and public service.
Oh, well, I will point out, however, it does actually translate to town of the people, and house of the people, as opposed to house of the politicians. This is important to mention at times.
There.
I must admit, I had never heard that about the red tape, the red line, about the device of polit. No,
Oh,
never.
it's entirely about the red tape. Yeah, and let me tell you, the office of the seneschal and the reeve here, all the red tape, it's just crazy.
Oh, no, we make sure it's in the right place. It's on the banners, and that way the rest of the time we're incredibly efficient.
Sure.
I'm sure you are. Under your very capable hands, I'm sure Polit is very efficient. So,
Thank you. Let's move on.
So, Politarchopolis is known. What is Politarchopolis known for across Lochac and?
Probably, I would say the thing that Polit is, and feel free to use Polit. It's what the people colloquially refer to.
Sorry.
And in fact, it's how we're known across most of Lochac. But Politarchopolis would be, in fact, most famous for its cooks. We are very, very blessed by having an abundance of many other talents, but the renown of the cooks of Politarchopolis has spread across Lochac and, in fact, across the known world.
Yes, it has. Not the least of that group are the Politarchopolis Assault Catering Corps. You'd well know about that, Your Excellency.
I might be slightly familiar.
Yeah. So does that particular group have like a motto?
Well, originally the motto of the Politarchopolis Assault Catering Corps was "Eat, eat your Altrusin," which I'm about to butcher the Latin on, which I think is "Ide, ide, nimmer massa est." But given that became such a motto of the barony itself, and in fact it is the call that you will hear when the name of Politarchopolis is sounded, that Politarchopolis Assault Catering Corps now has a new motto, which is "The food was God and nobody died. Rejoice."
You haven't killed anyone yet, I'm sure.
Not yet.
Never accidentally.
Never accidentally. No, of course not. And nothing can be proved. So while cooking is a major part of what Politarchopolis has done in the past, it should be noted that we are very blessed with a lot of practitioners of the arts and sciences of a diverse range, and we're also very blessed with a high quality archery group that exerts its influence in the known world in the ICAC rounds. They are very good. And we're not exactly short of heavy fighters either. We have quite a number of dukes and knights. We've got them lying around all over the place. And
well, they need to relax now. They've been very busy.
They do. They've been very busy. And it should also be said that we have a very fair number of potent fencers as well. So we're very lucky with everything that we do, but certainly our cooks are where it's all at.
Well, someone has to feed all our excellent artisans and fencers and armoured combatants and practitioners of the arts and sciences.
Yep.
It's how we make more of them.
So how did you, as Baron and Baroness, engage with your populace during the COVID times, and what are your plans for the future now that we're slowly but surely being allowed to gather in small groups?
It's a very serious question for a conversation that's gone so lightheartedly so far.
Yeah.
It's been tough, but we've been very lucky because somebody that I know is very adept in social media, maybe the known world social media officer. So somebody I know has been extremely active on social media, getting people into groups, showing events that happen around the known world, advertising that, beating that up. So you've been pretty busy with that, haven't you? Yeah,
but we've also been really lucky. So Politarchopolis University was probably Lochac's first virtual event, and that ran for a 6-week period. And that was we were really lucky to have people within the barony who had the skills to actually help us train and deliver moderators and trainers. As I mentioned, we're blessed with some really great artisans within the barony. So we've got really great teachers, and they also helped bring in teachers from across Lochac. Politarchopolis has been really blessed in general in the central barony with one of the lowest rates of COVID infection across both our nations. So that meant that events in the central barony could sort of recommence in a very, making sure that we followed our COVID safe plans, etc., to do it in a way that was socially responsible as well as safe. So we were actually, in fact, able to have a 25th anniversary for the central barony in late August. So, but the important thing has also been making sure that our cantons of Oakwaite and Torleon, who haven't been under the same restrictions as we have, their restrictions have been much heavier, have been able to make sure that they still felt engaged and valued and seen. So that's been a real priority for us.
No, I think you've definitely brought them together, and it's lovely to see. And the work that you've done, Mistress Anne, has been amazing with connecting Lochac and the rest of the known world. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. There are so many amazing people.
There are.
To steal a line from a certain very well-reputed wordpress, I do like seeing the opportunities to bring, the known world a little bit closer together.
I think your puppy's agreeing with you.
Definitely. That's actually the play with me bark. So she's quite grumpy about the fact that I'm on the chair. I might excuse myself for just 2 seconds.
So, Your Excellency, what are traditions of the barony that bring you joy to bring it back into about your barony?
Sure. One of the things I really love about the barony are the pensioners. So those people who were, no, seriously, those people who were champions of the barony, you're laughing. I love that. This is what I love about a conversation with you too. It's fantastic. I say stuff that's really serious and you break up into gales of laughter. It's great. And then when I crack a joke, it's awesome. So,
I suppose it's not something that we would have considered, but why do they bring you such joy?
Okay, so let me explain what the pensioners are. So they are our ex-champions, and they are retained by the Baron and Baroness as pensioners after they have finished their job as being our champions, and we pay them, and we pay them in a very, very period manner. We pay them in peppercorns. So they receive a peppercorn annually from us, and I have to say taxes if they've been bad, then they get less than one. And
half a peppercorn?
Look, peppercorns are very expensive in the Middle Ages, so they should feel grateful that we're paying them as much as we do. Really, they're mostly tired and worn out, old champions. I think I'm one. I was like, are you one as well?
No.
Oh,
no.
Well, you can work on that. So
I'll do my best.
Excellent. So I really love that we acknowledge those people who've been champions of our group for a really long time, and even if they aren't officially named as champions, they still act and they still contribute in a magnificent fashion, and that we acknowledge them in a manner that is, sure, it's only a peppercorn, right? But it is a period manner, and it is a period way of expressing our regard for them. So that's one of the traditions that I really like in this barony.
Well, we've been very lucky. It's been a couple of really good years for the barony. Sometimes they've gotten up to as many as 3 peppercorns. And it's not just our champions, it's also any members of our guard who have previously served. So we're able to, and look, I'm not saying we're sitting on one of the largest nutmeg hoards in the kingdom.
Maybe not the largest.
It's the largest.
Okay.
So we just have spice traders return and bring to us a bounty, and we may have calculated that possibly we could buy Rowaney. But out of our great respect for our cousins, we decided that it was under immensely capable hands, and so we just keep it stashed as an investment fund.
Yes.
So on that note, you've both played in the society for a long time, have you not? Before you volunteered or were voluntold to put your hand up as the Baron and Baroness of Politarchopolis, is that correct?
Yes. Okay. So how long have you been playing in the SCA?
Oh no, we're starting with you.
Oh, so okay. So I first started in 1984 in what became Inelgard, and I was an itinerant ne'er-do-well who hung around a little bit and fought heavy badly, and did a bit of heraldry, and as I got older and slower, I got caught into doing stuff, and as it gets slower still, I have to get caught into doing even more stuff. So that's pretty much me.
And see, by comparison, I'm a mere spring chicken of AS27, which is late 1992. And I started in the Barony of Riverhaven, and then shortly thereafter, the Shire of St. Florian de la Riviere.
Yes, that's right. So I think it's probably the right time for us to say that that we developed our friendship when we were the proteges of the same Pelican Mistress, and that we describe ourselves as siblings in service because we're great friends. But in this role as Baron and Baroness, we're not a couple. We're very good friends who work together in this role. So we're also very keen to show that non-traditional couples can do this role very well and contribute very well. There's room for many other people to have ambition to come into this role. Hopefully we're able to give that a little bit of a push along.
How long have you been Baron and Baroness?
We stepped up in early December 2018. So this is our third year.
So it's
although
COVID, right? So
although last year we, 374 months of 2020. Yeah.
Yep. So when I think about the term that we've had here, it's very much a case of before, during, and after, and it's hard for me to understand the whole thing as part of a continuum. It doesn't feel like a continued tenure. It feels very much dissimilar between the parts. But yeah, close on 3 years.
It'll be 3 years in December. Yeah.
Is it that long since we reigned? Because of course we invested you. The time.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
So, Your Excellency Giles, you reigned as a baron in another group previously. Did that not deter you from putting your hand up a second time? Obviously.
Okay, good question. Sure. So I do occasionally say that I've come back to the poison chalice, and that's unfair. That's cruel and unfair. The reality is that I had a really great time as Baron of St. Florian de la Riviere. I was very lucky. I followed the initial Baron and Baroness at St. Florian de la Riviere, and they made a fantastic foundation for us to step off on. In the time I was Baron of St. Florian de la Riviere, I was married to a beautiful lady who I was in love with very much, and we had a fantastic marriage. Okay, so it hasn't continued. Sorry. Life goes like that. But certainly it was a time I remember as a time of being in love with the game, and having a great time with the people. St. Florian de la Riviere, it was winning crowns and running great events, fantastic barony. So for a long time I've been wandering around saying what a great job it is to be Baron and Baroness of anywhere, and that anybody should feel the legitimate ambition to drive their game towards that place where they could be that person who is in charge of their group as Baron or Baroness. I think everybody should have that opportunity to think about that, whether it eventually happens for them or not, whatever. But there's nothing wrong with having that ambition. Now, when I came to Politarchopolis, I found that I had a friend who was highly regarded in the local area as a previous seneschal of the group, and she was thinking about running as Baroness, but wanted somebody to give her a little bit of
support.
A little bit of support.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, she's fantastic. So I don't want to say that I'm just here to look good, because I'm not. There's a couple of extra things I bring to the plate, but Anne's the fantastic one, right?
Do you find that having been Baron of St. Florian's has helped you as Baron of Politarchopolis?
Different boat, different ship, different sea?
So
We're not
a lot
asking
of
you to choose
similarities.
which is the better. We're
No,
just saying
definitely
because
not.
it's a different
No,
creature.
no, different. I was entirely going to say things are different. There are similarities, right? The court is very often similar. There are differences between the crowns. Naturally, everybody's got their own flavour, but Lochac's been really lucky with their crowns. They've had fantastic crowns who are interested in developing the people and recognising the people and what they do. I say this even when I'm not talking to you two, right? That the crowns of Lochac have been awesome. So in a lot of ways, the similarities between being a baron in the groups is very profound, but the internal flavour of every group is very different. And the hopes and dreams in each group is different. The ages of the people and where they are in their lives, very different. So, so trying to find the common areas and the common interests to drive enthusiasm and to recognise people very different in each group. So sure, I've been Baron in 2 groups. With a little bit of luck, this will be the last one. And
Go on, hat trick.
No, absolutely not. And especially Altani, if anyone's suggesting Rowaney, tell me to say no. Tell me to say no, okay?
Well, you're not far away from Rowaney.
I was going to ask, are you telling us that you're getting your subsection of Politicopolis is becoming a barony in the future? You're just going to take a sidestep and leave Anne with the bigger barony?
To answer that, I've been joking a bit in the conversation so far, but to answer it brutally seriously, it would take a massive failing in our ability to encourage and grow our people for me to have to go back to this role again. I would much prefer to grow and develop our people than to have to come back to this role. It's a great role, really enjoying it, having a great time. I've got a fantastic Baroness to work with. No, I want somebody else to take the job. I want other people to be in this role and to bring their flavour and their enjoyment into the game.
And just to make it very clear, Politicopolis' thoughts are very much that diplomacy gives us some of our stronger borders. We have no need of conquest.
When you're superior, people just bow down in front of you, Anne, let's be honest.
Oh, we think that the kingdom is entirely blessed by the quality of its people all over Lochac, and Politicopolis just stands amongst them.
Very
I
diplomatic.
think I got us out of that one.
You did great. You did really well.
Good.
I
Altani, have you ever thought about taking another shot? You were Baroness of Rowaney.
No. No.
So you
No.
laughed at me when I said I wasn't going to go to Rowaney, and now she's going, no, that's right, yeah.
No, it's more the fact I know I've done my shot at Baroness. That once is enough. Your Excellency Anne, how do you find reigning with Baron Giles?
I think one of the benefits of having someone who has previously experienced the role is that, and both of us having had a level of theatrical work, is that court comes quite easily to both of us. You will, of course, know that Baron Giles is known as the sexiest voice in Lochac as part of his ongoing court heraldry work. So our ability, got you. Our ability to actually manage our courts is really strong. It's also very useful at times to be able to, as we just say, split the party to make sure that we have quite a large geographic area. So making sure that we can see as many of our people as possible, that has been really useful in those sort of moments where that becomes sort of necessary. While our seneschals do a wonderful job of trying not to manage to create conflicts on our calendars, occasionally they do arise, and this gives us that freedom and flexibility to be able to support our people right across the greater and central barony.
Yeah.
So what gives you both joy as Baron and Baroness currently?
I have been told I'm the smiley Baroness by some of my people. I am incredibly proud and privileged to be in this role and to be able to see and recognise all of the amazing things that get done. You see it in a different perspective and a new way of looking in terms of being able to actually have those moments where you can make someone's day. You could actually look at being able to, like, you know, you can walk past, see someone doing a job that is tiring and quiet, and it's never going to be a big, sexy job. And you can stop and you can say thanks. And you can, you know, if you notice that person is someone who does this regularly, you then get the opportunity to recommend them, you know, and to recognise them and to bring them to the notice of the Crown. And that is a huge, huge joy. It has been a real privilege to hear from my people that my joy in them is one of the things that brings them joy. So it's this lovely little positive circle.
We're very fortunate that there's a great foundation of long-standing players in our game in Politarchopolis who are very adept at what they do. We've also got a strong number of relatively newcomers, and especially in our newer areas, who are driving and thrusting in the game, new ideas all the time, and barreling forward and making mistakes and gloriously failing, and it doesn't matter because they're still enthusiastic and they'll go again. And that's awesome. That to be able to feast on that excitement is very energizing, and I think when you're looking at people who are filled with enthusiasm and moving forward, you've got a couple of choices. You can either be very definitive and controlled and say you have to do it this way and not that way because otherwise you fail. You have to do it this way. I don't really work very well like that. I'm much better at saying to somebody, go hard. Here are all the resources we can give you. Go hard. And, oh, you failed and you fell over. That's okay. Pick yourself up, brush yourself off. It's going to be okay. Have another shot. What other resources can we put in you? How can we help this move forward? I'm a bit better at that than prescribing exactly what somebody should do. And so that's very exciting at the moment, with the opportunities for us to come back into more active face-to-face gaming and have our fighters, artisans coming together, having events together. Really very looking forward to cooking again, like you wouldn't believe. And
all the best people are found in the kitchen. You know that.
Sure. Well, you know, we're able to cook in other baronies rather than our own, right? You know.
Yeah, and de Tournai does not cook in Politarchopolis. Bridget of Akil may have made porridge one field of gold, but that was just a separate matter, and I promised not to talk about that ever again. So.
But yeah, for me, the joy in being the Baron is being there while our people shoot at the stars. That's totally awesome.
Do you think that your roles as master and mistresses of the various orders, do you think that has helped you as well, helping your barony to get together as well as leading them and guiding them as you would your students maybe?
It's an interesting perspective. I think it gives you a network and it gives you an idea about a different range of resources that the kingdom has that you have to support people. I think while there's an element of teacher and support to it, it's very much like there's a level of personal. I suppose the learning for me was that for some people, you know, we are their first Baron and Baroness, and that's a huge responsibility because you set the scene and you want to make it the best experience that you have. And that's something that all peers have on any given day. You could be the first peer that somebody meets, and therefore it is your job to help make it a good experience for them.
Look at this face. Look at the face of horror. You haven't thought about that before, have you?
So
I have.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how many people I've warped. That's the first peer they've
Not
met.
nearly enough.
So,
Yeah, that's
No.
true. I don't see Anne or I as dreadfully precious about our personal rank in the game. It's not something that we walk around and tell people about. What it has given us is a multitude of connections and of engagements and friends around the kingdom and around the known world that we're able to pass on to the people who are around us and say, hey, you're doing that cool thing. I know somebody who does that cool thing. How about you two talk together? And this is something that a lot of us do, right? It's very common. And this is a real advantage that I think we both have in our role.
And I think it's a really interesting, when you come from sort of a doing type role, stepping into the Baroness in particular, I would say it's a bit like Your Majesty's, your Graces would have experienced when you reigned. It's a very different experience, and in this sort of role, there are a level of gendered expectations about the consort or the Baroness in terms of that. So I'm quite an active person. I'm quite a doer of things. So the understanding that I needed to serve in different ways, and that part of how I served my people was not actually by doing some of the things that I used to do. I then served them in different ways. That was a big learning for me. It did, like my very first festival, I have never seen the Politarchopolis campsite have so much joy as they basically, in a very, very friendly way, teased the living hell out of me anytime I went to do, even if I looked like I was doing anything. Suddenly there was a Politarchopolan picking that up, moving that thing. Can I help you, Your Excellency? You know, I'd step out of my tent and there'd be someone appear from a corner, you know, but it was...
I didn't do this. This has nothing to do with me, okay? I'm completely innocent.
Yeah.
It's just... So ladies, you offered us the ability to ask you questions. So how about I talk about that gendered expectation? You've both served as Queen and you, Tani, as a landed Baroness. Do you feel that in those roles that you were squeezed into a place that you might not have wanted or expected?
Do you want to answer first?
All right. And I've got more questions afterwards as well.
Yeah.
I think to some extent, and I know this has changed, especially the relationship that I have with King Giadai. King Giadai, as you know, is very enamoured with getting laws, making things right. So I think maybe in the traditional sense of a crown, a lot of the paperwork might fall to the consort, where the male or the fighter just fights. That was never true in our reign. King Giadai is wonderful at that type of lawmaking and putting it through. I generally worked behind the scenes, trying to get things together and making sure things ran smoothly. You've all been to his courts. He can talk. He likes talking. I love him dearly, but there's a gentle nudge. That's enough. But he's very good at that as well. When we were Prince and Princess, it was probably a bit harder because I was so new in the game and I just sat very quietly. I had a lot of people come up to me going, you need to talk more. I can't do that. But I think one thing as a parent, as a mother, that I experience is that when we give an award, and I'm sure you do as well, Lilia and Anne and Giles, that when you give an award, you feel something. It's at that point, it's like a parent seeing something that, like their child blossoming, you can see them grow. And it's that warm, fuzzy feeling that I always got when I gave something that's either, it doesn't matter if it was an AOA, which is sometimes very special. You have to do it either quietly if the person is shy, or you can do it amongst a large number of people. Those things. I'm not answering this very well, actually.
Okay, you're doing great. It might not be the same answer to the same question, but you're doing great. It was really interesting.
We worked as a team. yes, some things fell my way more so than Kingirai's, but that's who we are. It has nothing to do with
Yes.
what sex we were. We gravitate to those things differently. Jalala.
Well, you all know my deceased partner pretty well. His outward exterior was very different from who he was. Like, he came across as being the very angry man with his furrowed brow and his very stoic kind of demeanor. But in reality, Bran did a lot of the paperwork, because Bran was very much like King Adai, where it was very much this is in black and white, and in black and white I work very well. Right? So it was like, which is why he worked really well in his mundane life, is as in HR, because somebody would go, I need this to happen, and he would go to the policy and go, this is how we work around the issues that you have to ensure that you get the best benefit and we get the best benefit. So he was very much that kind of person behind the scenes, and nobody really saw that, because they just saw a big Celtic boy with ugly mustache.
Aww.
Right.
Outrageous mustache. You're great. Outrageous mustache.
Very outrageous. I am very shy normally, believe it or not. So what would happen was, because he looked gruff and angry, people would approach me, and I became the conduit between the populace and angry men who knew what everything was going on. And he was a peer of the realm before we stepped up as well, and I was not. So I had that peer fear, and to some degree I still have a level of peer fear, that he just kind of went, everybody falls and makes mistakes and everybody gets back up. It's how you apologize for your mistakes and how you acknowledge the faults you have is what makes you a better peer, or the lack of peer. And I kind of went, all right. So I learned a lot in our reign on how to deal with the people I did perceive as above me, even though I was considered the highest rank. And I also dealt with the emotion that people would give to you as reigning people, because you do get a lot of, I'm not dealing with this, and you become a parent to not just those people that you already parent, but the people that are strangers, and then they become friends, and then you become emotionally invested. And I still am to some degree, but handing on the kingdom to my successors was a very, very scary but very enjoyable thing to do, because I was like, I have to hold this crying baby much longer. No, they weren't all crying, but this thing I've held so dear, if I have to hand it on, then I would like to hand it on now before I become jaded and tired. So yeah.
I think with any of these, sorry, Giles.
Oh, I'm having a really good time now. I'm going to ask Anne a question. So you said just a moment ago that you felt that there's some gendered expectations on your role as Baroness. What do we need to crush about those expectations?
I don't think it's necessarily crushed. I think it's adjust, and it's find the balance that works for you within your tenure. Because our job is to be the theatre that the court that other people play the game against. That is how we give of ourselves. And for some of us, about what we're doing, some of that theatre of the court is that the role of the consort is far less active in some physical endeavours, etc. One of the things I notice is that barons will quite often wander around by themselves quite comfortably. Baronesses, nah, and I've noticed it with their majesties at times, Now, it could just be that, their majesties are very nimble and fleet of foot at times, and the retainers don't always catch up with His Majesty. But definitely, when you are reigning, whether or not in a baronage or whether or not as the crown, particularly as a female person, you were never alone. You do have that constant presence. So that was a bit of an adjustment for me. I have found that one of the fastest ways to start helping with pack down or set up is if I start picking up and putting things down. You know, it's amazing how quick people will come and help. And it's not that people haven't thought about it. It's just that once it becomes obvious that I'm doing it, there are lots more volunteers than there may have been. But then also Politarchopolis is quite an established barony. We're the 7th baronage that have come. So we've had 6 couples as our predecessors. So Politarchopolis has definite expectations of their baron and baroness and expectations of how we will behave. And we get to put our own stamp of that. But as part of our respect for our barony, like, we have quite a formal court in terms of the fact that there is quite a high level of the formality around our attendance. But then you also get magic moments for other people created through that. So one of my guard talks about the fact that one of her magic moments at festival was we were heading down to court, and His Excellency was off. I think he was doing some fencing, but I was there, and I had my lady in waiting, and I had one of my guard, and there was someone in the path ahead of me, and all of a sudden my guard goes, "Make way for Her Excellency Politarchopolis," which my natural inclination is to go, "Shh, don't make a fuss, I'm really fine, I'll just go around you." But they sort of looked up and they went, "Oh," and then they like showed respect, and they cleared the road, and we put and I felt a little embarrassed by that. But then I understood, like, my guard came to me and said, "Thank you. That was a moment that I got to immerse myself in the game, and you helped me make that." So you take a balance of these things and you find what works for your people. So it was, as I said, the game of don't let the Baroness do anything was very much a game of that. It was a joyful thing between all of us. They thoroughly loved teasing me as a new Baroness because I'd only been Baroness for 4 months at that point. And it brought us closer together. People talk about that camp as having an immensely family feel. And that's something that we hope to recreate the next time we have the opportunity.
Maybe next year.
Yes. So we've diverged from the traditional questions, which I'm very happy about, because you, like, everybody in this conversation has something to add to it, and I love that. I'm going to ask all of you, including Altani, because Altani comes from a parent's point of view as well, is with our diversity and our focus on evolving the society the way that it is evolving to be inclusive, how do we balance keeping that traditional medieval version of what a consort and like the rules of who we are, like those people who enjoy that, like the courtesy and the chivalry that older ladies who may not have a gentleman at home who carries their bags across the site, how do we encourage that level without stepping on the toes of those new members who need to be inclusive and who need to be, you know, us to be gender fluid? And how do you do that? That one of the personal questions that I have is, I always say, you just be nice to everybody. Like if you don't single somebody out, you're not going to like leave anybody out, are you? But how,
But
as
it's also
strong members of our kingdom, how would you suggest that we can do that in an easier way or an easier fashion?
But I think it comes down to kindness and respect, but it also comes down to consent. So one of the questions is actually doing, like, you know, and it's as a sign of a respect, you actually ask if the way that you're offering to help is welcomed. You know, there's not an assumption that there, and, you know, and I think if we have that dialogue and that way that people can continue to work together, you act out of kindness, you act out of respect. And as long as you've established that consent, you know, may I carry that? Can I escort you? All of that. And that is a conversation that is not gender bound in any way. And so therefore we have that opportunity to carry those traditions of courtesy and kindness and honour right through our game with by just adding a simple check rather than an assumption. And I think that's all it takes. I don't think that those kindness, respect and courtesy are universal, all we need to do is just check that the courtesy we offer is the one that is being wanted.
So here's the beautiful thing about courtesy. It's not a zero-sum game. If I offer somebody some courtesy, it doesn't mean there's less courtesy for everyone else to offer. I haven't taken away from your opportunity to do courtesy to somebody else by me being courteous. I'm not treading on your toes. And it isn't a competition. It's not like, there's a brass ring at the top for the person who's the most courteous. Come on. So
it's not pie.
It's not pie. So the great thing about the very foundation of the SCA, it's founded in a protest against the modern world that there wasn't enough courtesy and chivalry. Students march in Berkeley, and we're here today. There is a direct line from that to here. And as much as we talk about the magnificent activities that we do, our great fighters, our wonderful artisans, and our beautiful servants, the key to our game is courtesy. Now, our world is becoming aware that it could have been more courteous to certain subgroups in our community in the past. I happen to agree. But that just means we've got more opportunity to be courteous to each other. We've got more opportunity to be the SCA. Yeah, we're making some changes in the way we're thinking about who's involved in our game. That just gives us more opportunity to be who we are. Courtesy is the road to the SCA being the best version of itself that there is.
And this has been this has been there since the very beginning.
Yep.
Capora 2B says that we must be respectful and courteous to all. This is the foundation. So it's all about really embracing what that looks like and thinking about how do we make this the best possible place that we can be. Because in my experience of years in the SCA, like these less than his years in the SCA, I just feel the need to point that one out fairly regularly.
Yeah,
I have met an incredibly minute number of people who aren't trying to be the best possible person they can be and to make the game the best possible experience for everybody. We are incredibly lucky as a society in that richness of people that tend to come to play with us. And as a result, that's why we build this amazing community that spreads across the known world. There are very, very few societies in which you can be stranded in another country or you can have some form of crisis and 99.9% of all participants will put their hand in their pocket, look for a way to help, make you safe. That is and I think the hallmark of our community is truly spectacular.
Yeah, Lilia. I mean, I can't imagine another society where somebody could have landed at a hotel in Compton and be sitting there on their luggage and not realise what part of LA they were in and have to reach out for some help and be rescued. I can't imagine any other society where something like that might happen to you, for example.
I'm not saying that I wholeheartedly 100% agree with you, but the question was asked solely to remind people that although we all start with this naivety of it being like A Knight's Tale or Lord of the Rings, right? Because we all swear fealty and it's Lord of the Rings. But we've evolved past that, and there's nothing wrong with evolving to be more inclusive and to be more courteous. So, Altani, you as a parent obviously have seen both sides of it before you had your lovely children as well. How do you feel that we've evolved?
We're still evolving, as we all know. Whether we're evolving too slowly or too fast for some, that is the thing that I think that makes us butt heads a little bit. And how do we fix that part up? I don't know. More conversation. How to be more inclusive of those who maybe are older or either end of the spectrum. It doesn't matter. How do we get those two groups to speak together and go forward from there, respecting both sides? of course, with courtesy, with respect. But there's always, I sometimes think that sometimes I have a group that's sometimes not listening to each other. How do we cross that bridge? Like, we're getting there slowly. Sometimes, as I said, we want to go faster, but that's a hard thing to push through when you've had a mindset that needs changing, or a more understanding. I don't have the answers to that, but
It's really interesting, Altani. Like in some of my modern work that I'm doing, I'm having the privilege of working with some of our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, who are the Australian First Nations peoples. And one of the things that we've been really looking at is the ways of First Nation Australians' ways of knowing, being, doing and thinking. And there's a really big concept in that, which is around listening to understand and to reflect as a mark of showing respect. And that's been something I've been really reflecting on recently. And it's something that I sometimes in my other hat think that we could all take a moment to listen to understand rather than listen to speak.
Yeah.
Yes. Wholeheartedly. Anybody hears anything, they should hear that line itself from this interview.
It's a hard thing to confront when you've
it is.
been
And
in one
look,
mindset
we're
for
built,
so long. It is hard to change, but we need
We're built to have one mouth and two ears, and we very rarely use them in the right proportion.
Yep.
And really the best way for us to move forward is to listen. I can't possibly know everything. I know a very small sliver of stuff, and the only way I can progress forward, that I can learn and grow, is to hear the people who are around me. I can't pronounce stuff. That isn't going to work. I have to listen to the people who are around me, and the better we're able to do that, the stronger and faster we can grow.
So
And
before
besides,
we
do you
go down
know how?
I am going to divert us back and ask you, let you finish first, Anne, but then ask you what your favorite no shit there I was story was, because we are getting very close. I could speak to you guys forever. Like Altani, I adore, and you both are like inspirations to me in the society. But yeah, we're running out of time, unfortunately.
I was just going to say, do you know how many cultures in the world have mustard? Oh my God, there's so much opportunity.
Yeah.
So mustard will be the bridge between the worlds. Or peppercorns.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. So no shit there I was.
Ooh. Probably I suppose to think of a more recent no shit there I was. I think people were very familiar with His Excellency as a force to be reckoned with in court. You know, they were less aware that I had experience in a similar area, because a lot of my more recent SCA work had been either behind a stove or in more of an administrative role. So people didn't understand.
We'll fill them.
Yeah.
Very much.
His Excellency was delayed in reaching festival, so wasn't able to attend just due to work priority. Real life always comes first.
Yes,
you know, but he was, which meant that I was going to be attending the opening court at festival by myself, and some young whippersnappers in purple and white may have laid a claim to our barony. You know, they may have thought that because Baron and Baroness Politarchopolis, Stephen and Matilde, were in fact their parents.
Their bloodline.
Yeah, they seem to think that unlike the traditions of Lochac, where this is done by merit and the word of the crown, that they should merely take our great barony. And so they had declared this, and there had been much discussion, particularly between His Excellency and his cousin, the St. Florian. And so we were approaching the first court. And I was sitting there thinking, okay, everything. And Master Crispin had brought me some harvest that he had brought from our fair lands, you know, and he had brought me some mighty, mighty apples. And he may have brought me some tiny, tiny apples. And I was able, in court, to start a conversation with my cousins by presenting, of course, Their Majesty with the bounty of our harvest, by presenting him an apple fully the span of my hand. And then I went and asked my guard for an apple worthy of my cousin, St. Florian. And I may have brought out a tiny, tiny, tiny apple. And then I may have expounded upon the fact that we are a kingdom built on worth, not purely the traditions of birth. And there was much cheering and much sniggering, and it remains one of my absolute favourite memories, particularly as I looked at my cousin Rufus and saw a somewhat gobsmacked expression on his face. And we shared a drink later that night at the Baron and Baroness's meeting, and there was a lot of laughter. So it was a nice way to sort of introduce myself to the kingdom in this role. So it's my favourite no shit. There I was in that particular context.
I'm just going to point out it's very biblical that you hand somebody an apple.
Well, I can't beat that, so I have to go in a completely different direction. I've been to Penzic once with you, and we had a really fantastic time. Now, sometimes when you go places, other people who aren't there make your experience different. Now, at some stage during our journey, we texted back to Canberra and spoke to Macca. And Macca said, "Love to you all, have a really good time, and lick Giles for me." And he just, absolute throwaway line. He's just thrown this line away. Ha, 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 ha. It's been hilarious, okay? But sometimes when you say stuff like that, the snowball starts to roll. And as it rolls, it gets bigger and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So by the time we get to Penzic's site, okay, the lick Giles thing has developed into a mania. Okay, so it's, and I don't know why. I really don't know why, okay? So there are people who walk across the Penzic encampment, come into our camp, walk up to me, "Are you Giles?" Lick me on my head, and just walk out again. And it just snowballs and snowballs. Anyway, Waldo then carefully gets it published in the Penzic Independent. Okay, it's great.
He's kind and caring.
I'm having such a great time, okay? So I get a little bit of an escape. I run away. I'm out in the shops trying to keep my head down and stay out of trouble. And I'm at the very far corner of the Serengeti, right at the very last shop on the very last corner. It's a lovely shop, having a good look around. And in the shop, there's Sergeyevich Cheval, and he's a known celebrity around the known world. And I say, "Hi, I write to you. You're fantastic." And he's talking to some duchesses, and they're really awesome, and I'm just a nobody, and you know, it's really lovely to meet you, and all of that sort of stuff. And Guy says, "And so, how are you finding the whole licking thing, Giles?" And the shopkeeper says, "Oh, are you that Giles?" Fame is a fickle mistress, okay? It's yeah.
Mac is an evil man, I'm just going to say.
He didn't have any idea of, he had no idea. He just threw the line away, and he wasn't even aware of it until we came back. And, you know, I told him how he'd ruined my life.
Yeah.
Ruined
all those personal space issues that you have gone. Strangers lick you. Perfect.
He's a lot bigger on hats these days.
Yeah.
Well, you
Really like hat. Lots of head covering.
Yep.
And COVID.
And COVID. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that too.
COVID's been your savior, hasn't it? Oh my goodness. You guys are amazing and I miss seeing you. I really do.
You'll have to come to, both of you will have to come to Politarchopolis as soon as it is possible so we can host you.
Will always be a joy.
So we've actually reached our hour. I am going to encourage whoever takes over the role of this fantastic online interview to interview you both again, because I think we touched on some amazing topics, but didn't quite go into the in-depth that we could do. This is my last interview. I am very grateful that I got to do it with friends, that Altani has volunteered to be one of the hosts of this show, and that Magnus has always been there to support us in the background. I would like everybody to tick, share, and watch the videos over again. If you have any questions or inquiries, please post them to the page, and the other Roses of Lochac, who are stars within our heaven. See, Charles, I can write literature too. Charles is known for one of the best poems of Lochac when he talks about all of our reigning royalty. I would like to thank you all very much for participating again in this. And please remember, everybody, we are just one big village. We are inclusive, we are caring, and courtesy is important. And that in the unknown future, where we'll slowly but surely come back together, it's more important to recognize your friendship than to judge people for what they have or haven't done. So thank you very much for joining us on this, my final interview. So yay! Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Lilia, for everything you have done for us and for this kingdom. You are truly an inspiration to us all. We will miss you. We'll miss you. And I'm sure we'll get you back. Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellencies, for your time. It's been a pleasure.
It's been our privilege.
Hello, I have the power to turn all of this off.
Hello.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank you immensely for coming along for the ride and helping this thought that I pitched to yourself and B to become a reality. And on that, while Lily's taking off her hat, I shall close this meeting. Have a lovely evening to you all.
Thank you,
Bye.
Magnus. Bye-bye.
Lovely to see you.